Good day, everyone. It's my pleasure to have you here. And I hope that you are all safe and doing good all the time. And always bear in mind the health protocols of our health organization and practice necessary things for safety. Our lesson for today is all about the introduction to food and beverage services. And this is specifically designed for the students who are taking up TBL as their track and home economics and cookery as their strand. Specifically, our subject matter is food and beverage services. Are you ready? So let's get started. As we all know, food and beverage services is very high in demand, not just in our country but all over the world. That's why it is must for you to learn and explore more about food and beverage services. And creating good impression is very significant in the fine dining setup, for we might leave a bad impressions to the guests as soon as they enter the vicinity or the food establishments. That's why we need to be trained enough and knowledgeable enough on how to handle the guests as soon as they enter the vicinity or the food establishments. And today, we are also going to discuss and learn the proper way of welcoming and greeting the guests and standard operating procedures and leading the customer or guest to their seats. And here are the procedures for welcoming and greeting guests. First step is we have to ensure that the restaurant is ready for the service. Next is greet guests with great smile. Welcome guests to the outlet and ask guests if they have a reservation. And also ask guest preferences if smoking or non-smoking. And guide guests to the table preference. And always use open palm. And here are the procedures for escorting the guests to their seats. First is always lead the guest. And use open palm directly which way to go. For elderly and or disabled person, assist properly, but ask permission first. For group with kids, position them in the corner or wall side. For couples, assist them to the best view of the restaurants or the corner side view of the restaurants. And always follow guest preferences. Every food and beverage service staff should be trained in approaching the guests or the customers upon their arrival. And this way, everyone should be aware of proper actions, gestures, and how to properly greet and welcome the guest. First thing we need to do as soon as the guests enter the vicinity or the food establishments, acknowledge his or her presence by greeting properly with great smile, because our smiles gives an impression to the guests that we are happy and excited that they finally arrived in our restaurants or food establishments where we are working. And if possible, greet the guests with prefixes such as Mr. or Miss, Ma'am or Sir, and to be followed by customer's name if you already knew something about the customer. Ma'am or sir should be used if you are not familiar rather with their surnames, unless the guest asks you to address him with his or her first name. And never address the customers using the first name, for it will not effective making your customers happy. And remember, always express gratitude to the returning guests or the customers, because it means that they like your service. Now, after greeting the guests, it is time for us to ask essential questions to our incoming guests. Remember, before asking anything, the first thing we need to do is to identify the host if he or she is the one that will answer our essential questions. As soon as we verify the host, it is time for us to check if there are any reservations. So the first thing we need to ask to the guest is, Ma'am or Sir, do you have any reservation? And before offering any seats to the guests, it is significant to know first if they already booked a reservations to our restaurants. For in the reservation process, they might already ask for the table that was already reserved for them. Now, if the host answered yes, that they already booked a reservation, the next questions you are going to ask to the host is, may I know which name the reservation is made? It will allow us to confirm the booking details, and if there are any special requests, we can already prepare it for the guest or the customer, because some guests include special requests in the phone or telephone reservation process. Now, from the booking details, we can already check how many persons are we expecting, and if they have any special occasions for that day, and if the guest doesn't have any reservation. The next questions that we are going to ask is table for how many persons. The number of persons that we are expecting for the table will determine what table are we going to suggest for them. And we're also going to look for the availability of tables that can accommodate that number of guests. And always remember, before leaving them into their seat, is always ask them first if they prefer smoking or non-smoking area. Because some restaurants provide already a place for smokers and non-smokers. And finally, what we are going to do next is lead them into their seats. In leading the guests or customers to their seats, always be aware of the distance you from the guests. Make sure that you are 1 meter apart from them. And remember, when we are leading our guests or customers to their seats, always use open palm gestures. The reason why we need to be aware of the distance of the guests, if we are too far from them, they can hear our instructions, they can hear what we are saying while we are leading them to their seats. And if we are close to them, it might be uncomfortable with the guests or the customers, of course. So always be mindful and sensitive to the guests if they need assistance, such as for carrying bags or assistance for the kids. And that will be the end of our discussion. And see you next meeting.